When I was 8 years old, I worked in my father's drugstore. He was a pharmacist and had a drugstore on the west side of Cleveland where I grew up. And it would take about 40 minutes or so to each way to drive there. And I loved working in that drugstore. And my first job, I remember, in the drugstore was putting together the Sunday newspaper. My brother showed me how to put together the ads that came in on Saturday and put it together with the news that came on Sunday. And I got paid 50 cents an hour, I remember. And so, child labor. But I worked there for 6 years, and I was a stock boy during that time. And I loved working there because the people that were there were incredible. There were a lot of characters in the drugstore. And I remember Shirley. She was the cashier, and she was a chain smoker who always raved about her grandson, Brian. And he was a pitcher in Little League, and she was so proud of him. I remember Kitty, who was another cashier who I had a crush on. I started when I was 8. I was probably maybe 10 years old at the time. And she worked there when I was there sometimes. I remember Tony, who was the senior stock boy, if you will, and he taught me on how to stock the shelves and whatnot. And there was Dolores, I remember, who worked in the back by the pharmacy, and she taught me how to make grilled cheese using a toaster oven. There was Bob, who was my father's right-hand man, who was another pharmacist, who was just an all-around great guy. And of course, I loved working in the store because, being the owner's son, I felt special. I felt like I fit in and I belonged. And I got good at what I did, and I loved the customers who came into the store and helping them. I learned how to relate to people from all backgrounds, all types of backgrounds within the store, different ages, different races, different whatever it may be. And I really learned through that experience a solid work ethic. I learned a lot about connecting with others and the importance of relationships. That's carried me throughout my life and throughout my career. And one of the things, one of the gifts, if you will, that my parents gave to me was the gift of choice. They never pressured me to take over the business, if you will. And in actuality, my father ended up selling the drugstore, but they did have other businesses that they started. They did have another one in particular that I felt maybe I should take that over, as the responsible son, if you will. But it was really up to me, and once I determined it just wasn't the right fit, I couldn't get inspired by it. I thought a lot of ways on how I might change the business to make it more of a fit for me, and it just didn't add up. And so the only thing my parents really told me was, I remember my father saying, "Mike, get your union card." That was his big thing. And by that he meant, basically get your college degree and pick something that you can do and take with you always, fall back on, something you can fall back on. So now let's fast forward to college. And I remember it was my sophomore year in college, and this was a low point for me. I was in this philosophy 101 class. It was a huge lecture hall, 200 students or so. I remember sitting on the upper mezzanine, if you will, and I remember coming back home after class one day, just really frustrated. And I was frustrated because I couldn't hear the professor. I was taking notes and I couldn't hear everything. And you see, I was born with a hearing loss with 40% in each ear. And it was always a struggle growing up. And I had a hearing aid, but I didn't want to wear it when I was growing up. I wanted to fit in, and I thought it would kind of I'd look different by wearing it to school. So I never really wore it at school, only in the safety and security of my home with my family. And so, and I even remember a conversation with my audiologist back then who said, Mike, wearing a hearing aid will actually make you fit in more because you'll be able to hear better and participate in the conversations with everyone. But I didn't take his advice. Flash forward to college in that Philosophy 101 class, and I came home with that frustration of that, and I basically had a choice at that point. I was so frustrated, and it was so painful for me because I loved learning. I had dreams to teach one day and to help other people. And I had a choice. And in that moment I decided, you know what, screw it. I'm just gonna go ahead and get some hearing aids. And I went out, I spent like $4,000. It's a lot of money, $4,000 to get a pair of hearing aids. And I committed myself to wearing them every day from that point forward. And, that was a defining moment for me because at that point in time, I decided, basically not to be a victim anymore of my circumstance, to basically take the bull by the horns, if you will, and do something about it. It was available. There was resources available that could help me, and I didn't have to struggle. But I had, in a way, without knowing, chosen to struggle all those years by not wearing them, and that was difficult. That was difficult for me to get over that. But I got to tell you, that was one of the best decisions I ever made. It was one of the best decisions I ever made, and it really opened up my world that much more. So flash forward a number of years, I'd gone to grad school and got a great first job, and then I hit this rough patch. So it's this 3-year period that was just a swirl of confusion, and I really struggled during those 3 years. I had been laid off from a job that I had, my first job out of grad school. I'd been there for 5 years. I'd been laid off, and that was a challenge. I'd been looking for other opportunities, but it's always difficult when you're laid off. And after that point in time, I was able to get another job, and I was in the nonprofit field. I got another job, and it didn't work out. While I had the other job, my son was about to be born, and I ended up being let go. When I confronted the executive director on some behavior that I thought was kind of abusive. I didn't really agree with it, and she wasn't happy with how I was doing and fitting in with the job, and admittedly I was probably somewhat distracted with my son about to be born, and that was difficult, but I moved on to another job that didn't work out either. And so I just was kind of stumbling quite a bit, and I wanted the job. The next job was that that didn't work out. I wanted to be there for my son, and it just didn't work out for them with the schedules. And I thought I had vetted everything ahead of time before I took the offer and let them know, but ultimately my manager had a difficult time with that, and so unfortunately it didn't work out. So again, that was kind of another low point there, because I was so passionate about what I do and helping others reach their potential, and here I was, just felt like I was just sinking and really struggling career-wise. Now, I ended up making another choice at that point, because I'd been in the nonprofit field for quite a while. I said, I have enough money to get by, like I was earning enough from these jobs to get by, but not enough to save for the future. And so I decided to go back more into the corporate environment, and I had consulting firms on my list. I had biotech on my list, and I had some other nonprofits too to see if maybe it might be something that would be even better. And ultimately, though, after talking with a mentor of mine at the time, he said, "You know what? You should talk to so-and-so at this company." And it turns out I knew that woman from previous professional encounters, if you will, professional meetings. And her counterpart had someone that was looking for a job. They had a job opening, right? So one of her peers within the company had a job opening, and less than 2 weeks later, I had a job offer, after talking with her and interviewing with the team, and it seemed like a good fit. And so I had been there 11 years. In fact, I just left after being with the company for 11 years, and without necessarily any guarantees. I left because I'm passionate about coaching. I want to invest 100% of my time and energy into coaching and some of my entrepreneurial endeavors, my ideas that I have for that. And so, that's one of the key things that I learned from that is, I was asked by people when I was leaving, "Mike, are you scared?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course I'm scared." But my energy level, my passion and excitement for this new venture is like up here, and my fear is like, right here. It wasn't always that way. It used to be the reverse. But, as soon as I tuned in more and more, that gave me greater confidence to just try it out. And, I had to say to myself, if it doesn't work out, then I'll go back as an internal consultant, which was the role that I've been in, internal advisor, internal consultant. But I need to give this a try. And so here I am today. I'm here to serve many of you, hopefully, or those that that are struggling with their careers. And I don't know how it'll work out, but one thing I do know is I'm really passionate about helping others, and I'm really excited to have the opportunity to do this. And, kind of looking back and reflecting on all these experiences, these different touch points throughout my life, my career, is I realized that, it takes a lot of courage in many senses when you have the fear of the unknown, when you've kind of been unstable and you don't know what's going to happen. And each time I survived those experiences, I gained more confidence in myself. That, what, I'll handle what comes my way. If it doesn't work out, it's not the end of the world. I'll figure something out. I always have. It doesn't feel like it at the time, but I've always been able to figure it out. And in fact, the last job I had, the one I mentioned where I was there for 11 years with a Fortune 500 company, was amazing. It was a great place to work for. I left on a good note. I enjoyed what I did. And the reason for me leaving was really because I had, bigger visions, a greater passion to do more of what I love to do. And so with that, for whatever it's worth, that's my story.